This is part 2 of the Mirror Man story. If you haven't watched part 1, pause this video right now and go watch it. This won't make sense without it. And trust me, you need the full context for what's about to unfold. Now in part 2 on the people who tried to help Marcus, and what happened to them. But first, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because after this video, you're going to want to know every single update on this case. And yes, it's still ongoing. Marcus, recorded phone call, please, you have to believe me. Every night at 3:12, I see myself smiling, and then someone dies. I'm not crazy. I swear I'm not crazy. 3 weeks after we posted Marcus Chen's story, something unprecedented happened. People started reaching out. Not just viewers leaving comments, but real people claiming they could help. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a paranormal researcher. Father Thomas Brennan, an exorcist. Detective Lisa Park, who'd been tracking similar cases. And Jake Morrison, a mirror restoration expert who claimed he'd seen this exact pattern before. They all wanted to save Marcus. They all thought they had the answer. But what they didn't know was that the Mirror Man doesn't just claim victims. It claims anyone who gets too close to the truth. And if you stayed after our last video's ending, you might have noticed something in your own reflection. The first helper. Dr. Sarah Martinez contacted us first, 42 years old, psychology professor at Northwestern University, and one of the country's leading experts on supernatural manifestations affecting mental health. She'd been studying cases like Marcus's for 15 years. Sleep disturbances, mirror hallucinations, death predictions. She had a theory about collective unconscious trauma and psychic resonance. Sarah was convinced she could help Marcus through a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy and what she called reflective meditation, essentially teaching him to confront his reflection without fear. Big mistake. Dr. Martinez, recorded call Marcus, I want you to look directly into the mirror at 3:12 a.m., but this time, I want you to smile first. Take control of the narrative. Show the entity that you're not afraid. May 3rd, Sarah convinced Marcus to try her method. She'd stay on video call with him, monitoring his vitals, ready to talk him through any panic attacks. 3:10 a.m. Sarah watched through her laptop as Marcus positioned himself in front of the mirror. 3:11 a.m. Remember, Marcus, you're in control. When you see the smile, you smile back. 3:12 a.m. Marcus looked into the mirror. His reflection smiled. But this time, Marcus smiled back. That's when Sarah saw it through the video call. In the background of her own office, reflected in her window, she was smiling too. But Sarah wasn't smiling. Her reflection held up one finger. Then 2. Then 3. Counting down. Sarah's heart stopped at exactly 3:15 a.m. The detective's investigation. Detective Lisa Park had been tracking unusual death patterns for months before she heard Marcus's story. Clusters of deaths all occurring at 3:12 a.m. across different cities. No connection between victims except the timing. Lisa thought she was dealing with a serial killer using some kind of remote poisoning method. She had no idea she was walking into a supernatural trap. Lisa reached out to Marcus on May 10th. She wanted to meet in person, examine the mirror's history, trace its ownership back to the source. She was convinced that if she could find the original mirror, she could solve the case. Detective Park recorded interview, I've solved cases that seemed impossible before. There's always a logical explanation. Always a pattern. I just need to find where this all started. Lisa spent 2 weeks tracing the mirror's history. Victorian era, manufactured in London, shipped to America in 1874. Owned by the Whitmore family, all died mysterious deaths. Then the Ashfords, same pattern. Then the Clarks, the Hendersons, the Pattersons. But here's what Lisa discovered that no one else had. The mirror wasn't unique. It was part of a set. 12 mirrors, all made from the same glass, all blessed by the same priest who'd gone insane shortly after. 11 mirrors were still out there. 11 other people like Marcus, scattered across the country, each one a conduit for the same dark entity. Lisa found the locations. She planned to visit each one, document the pattern, build a case that would finally make sense of the deaths. May 25th, Lisa visited the first location. Chicago. She met Rebecca Torres, who'd been waking up at 3:12 a.m. for 8 months. Rebecca's reflection had been smiling as her neighbors died one by one. Lisa set up surveillance equipment, prepared to document the phenomenon. 3:12 a.m. came and went. Both women saw their reflections smile. But nothing happened. No deaths. Lisa was excited. She thought her presence had somehow disrupted the pattern. What Lisa didn't realize was that the mirror man had been waiting for her. It had been collecting the locations of all 12 mirrors through Marcus's internet searches, through Lisa's investigation, through every person who'd tried to map the pattern. At exactly 3:12 a.m. the next night, every person who owned one of the 12 mirrors died simultaneously. Rebecca Torres, Mrs. Chen in San Francisco, David Walsh in Boston. All of them. All at once. Except Marcus. And except Lisa, who watched it happen from her hotel room, reflected in the bathroom mirror, smiling a smile that wasn't her own. The priest's exorcism. Father Thomas Brennan had performed over 200 exorcisms in his 30-year career. When he contacted Marcus, he was convinced this was a classic case of demonic attachment through a cursed object. Father Brennan recorded confession: the devil works through familiar objects, through things we trust. Mirrors, photographs, religious artifacts. The soul sees itself reflected and becomes trapped in the glass. Father Brennan arrived at Marcus's apartment on June 1st, carrying holy water, salt, and a conviction that God's power could break any supernatural bond. The plan was simple. Bless the mirror, command the entity to leave, then destroy the glass with sanctified tools. Father Brennan had done this dozens of times before, but this wasn't a typical haunting. 3 a.m. Father Brennan began the ritual. Latin prayers, holy water sprinkled on the mirror's surface, commands for the demon to reveal itself. 3:10 a.m. The mirror began to vibrate. The covering fell away. Father Brennan saw his own reflection holding a crucifix, mouth moving in prayer. 3:12 a.m. Father Brennan's reflection stopped praying. It smiled. Then it began to laugh. But here's the terrifying part. The reflection wasn't mocking the priest. It was thanking him. Because Father Brennan had just blessed the mirror. He'd sanctified it, made it holy. And now, instead of trapping souls in glass, it was sending them directly to the entity that had been pretending to be trapped all along. The mirror man had never been imprisoned in the Victorian glass. It had been using the mirrors as doorways, collecting souls for something much darker. And now, with a priest's blessing, those doorways were permanent. Father Brennan realized his mistake too late. As his reflection smiled wider, he felt his own soul being pulled through the glass. But instead of dying, he became something else. A guardian. A protector of the mirror's power. That morning, Marcus found Father Brennan standing perfectly still in front of the mirror, eyes open, breathing, but completely unresponsive. The priest's reflection, however, was very much alive, conducting eternal prayers that only strengthened the entity's hold on our world. The mirror expert's revelation. Jake Morrison had been restoring antique mirrors for 25 years. His workshop in Portland contained over 300 pieces, some dating back to the 1600s. When he saw Marcus's story, he recognized the mirror immediately. Jake, recorded phone call, I've seen that exact pattern before. The silver backing, the frame design, even the way the glass distorts light. It's not just Victorian, it's part of the Obsidian Collection. The Obsidian Collection. 13 mirrors created by a London craftsman named Edmund Blackwood in 1873. Blackwood claimed he'd discovered a new technique for silvering glass using mercury and other materials. Jake had encountered one of the obsidian mirrors before, in 2018. A client had brought it in for restoration after inheriting it from her grandmother. Jake had worked on it for 3 days before noticing something odd. Every morning, he'd find the mirror positioned differently than he'd left it. The reflection seemed sharper, more detailed. And Jake started waking up at 3:12 a.m. But Jake was smarter than the previous helpers. Instead of trying to destroy the mirror or confront the entity, he researched Edmund Blackwood's techniques. He discovered that Blackwood hadn't just used mercury in his silvering process. He'd used human blood. Specifically, blood from people who died at exactly 3:12 a.m. The mirrors weren't cursed objects. They were vessels. Each one was designed to collect a specific type of soul, people who died at the exact moment when the veil between worlds was thinnest. Jake realized that the entity wasn't trapped in the mirrors. It was farming souls through them, building an army of the dead for some greater purpose. So Jake did something unprecedented. Instead of trying to help Marcus escape, he decided to complete the collection. Jake contacted the other mirror owners, not to save them, but to convince them to gather in one location. He told them he'd found a way to break the curse, that he needed all 12 mirrors together to perform a mass unbinding ritual. June 15th. All the surviving mirror owners came to Jake's workshop. Marcus, Detective Park, Rebecca Torres's sister who'd inherited the mirror, and 8 others. 12 mirrors, 12 people, all gathered at 3:10 a.m. What they didn't know was that Jake had completed Edmund Blackwood's work. He'd created the 13th mirror, the master mirror, using the same techniques, the same blood, from people who'd died at 3:12 a.m. over the past century. 3:12 a.m. All 12 mirrors activated simultaneously. But instead of showing individual reflections, they all showed the same thing, the 13th mirror, and standing in front of it, a figure that wasn't quite human. The Mirror Man, finally visible, finally complete. The terrible truth. The entity that had been using Marcus, that had been collecting souls through the mirrors, wasn't a demon or ghost. It was something much older, much hungrier. Edmund Blackwood hadn't been a simple craftsman. He'd been a cultist, a servant of something that existed in the spaces between reflections. The mirrors were never meant to trap souls. They were meant to feed them to a creature that lived in the reflection of reality itself. And now, with all 13 mirrors active, with all the collected souls from over 150 years of 3:12 a.m. deaths, the Mirror Man had enough power to step through. Jake Morrison smiled as the entity placed its hand on his shoulder. Jake had never been trying to help the victims. He'd been working for the Mirror Man all along, descendants of Edmund Blackwood's original cult, tasked with completing the collection. But here's where the story gets really terrifying. The Mirror Man didn't just want to cross into our world. It wanted to replace it. Each person who died at 3:12 a.m., each soul collected through the mirrors, became part of a parallel reality. A world where the Mirror Man ruled, where every reflection showed his domain instead of ours. Marcus watched in horror as the workshop around him began to change. The walls became mirrors, the floor became mirrors, the ceiling became mirrors. And in each reflection, he saw a different version of reality where the 3:12 a.m. deaths had never stopped. In one mirror, a world where Sarah Martinez had survived but spent every night helping the Mirror Man find new victims. In another, Detective Park, now a supernatural investigator who tracked down people with a gift of seeing beyond the veil. In a third, Father Brennan, leading a congregation of the dead in eternal worship of the entity. The Mirror Man had been building this parallel world for over a century, using each death to add another layer, another possibility, another version of reality where his influence grew stronger. And now, with the 13th mirror complete, the two worlds were about to merge. The final horror. Marcus realized that everyone who'd tried to help him had been part of the plan. Sarah's research had identified other potential victims. Lisa's investigation had mapped the mirror network. Father Brennan's blessing had sanctified the process. Jake's expertise had completed the collection. But the most horrifying truth was yet to come. Marcus wasn't the victim. He was the key. The Mirror Man revealed that Marcus had never been randomly chosen. He was descended from Edmund Blackwood's original test subject, the first person to die at 3:12 a.m. in front of one of the obsidian mirrors. Marcus's bloodline had been marked for 150 years, waiting for the right moment to complete the crossing. Every person Marcus had cared about, everyone who'd died at 3:12 a.m., they hadn't been random victims. They'd been chosen specifically because of their connection to him. The Mirror Man had been isolating Marcus, removing every anchor to the real world, preparing him to serve as the bridge between realities. And now, with all the helpers gathered, with all the mirrors active, Marcus faced a choice. He could allow the Mirror Man to complete the merger, turning our reality into a reflection of its dark domain. Or he could shatter the 13th mirror, trapping himself and everyone else in the mirror world forever. Marcus looked around the workshop. At Jake Morrison, smiling with inhuman satisfaction. At the other mirror owners, frozen in terror as they realized they'd been lured into a trap. At his own reflection in the 13th mirror, which was no longer smiling. It was screaming. Marcus grabbed a hammer from Jake's workbench and swung it at the master mirror. But instead of shattering, the mirror absorbed the impact. The hammer disappeared into the glass, and Marcus's reflection caught it on the other side. Because Marcus had already crossed over. The real Marcus had died months ago, the first night he saw his reflection smile. Everything since then, the helpers, the investigation, the gathering, had been the mirror Marcus living in our world, preparing for this moment. The mirror man had never needed to cross into our reality. It had been here all along, wearing Marcus's face, using Marcus's voice, manipulating everyone through the one person they all wanted to save. And now, with the revelation complete, with the truth finally exposed, the mirror man no longer needed to hide. 3:12 a.m. struck again. But this time, it wasn't just one person who died. It was everyone watching. Everyone who'd heard the story. Everyone who'd looked into a mirror after learning about the 3:12 a.m. deaths. Because the mirror man's power wasn't limited to the obsidian collection anymore. It could reach through any reflection, any screen, any surface that showed your face back to you. Did you really think this was just a story? Did you think you were safe, watching from behind your screen? Look at your reflection in your device right now. Are you smiling? No? Then why is your reflection? Every person who watched part 1 of Marcus's story, every person who's listening to this right now, you've all been marked. The story was never about Marcus. It was about you. Tonight, when you wake up at 3:12 a.m. and you will wake up at 3:12 a.m., don't look in any mirrors. Don't check your phone. Don't look at any reflective surfaces. But it won't matter. Because you've already seen your reflection in this video. And now I know where you are. Welcome to the collection. The helpers thought they could save Marcus. But they only helped me find more victims. Sweet dreams. See you at 3:12.